Partake Brewing is a leading craft non-alcoholic beer brand in North America. We have the founder and CEO, Ted, with us today. Thanks for joining in, Ted.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So, Ted, it has been now almost 3 years, I guess, since you have been running Partake Brewing. And until recently, when you received $4 million funding, you have been bootstrapping and, running some Kickstarter campaigns. I know it's not been an easy journey there. So if you circle back to 2017, what exactly prompted you to start Partake Brewing then?
Yeah, the story actually goes back really a few years prior. Unfortunately for me, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease
Yeah.
in 2005, and that was really the start of this change for me, and
Okay.
that really got me thinking about how can I live healthier, eat healthier, sleep better, get more exercise. And in all honesty, it took a few years for that really to kind of sink in. And I had one moment where I was on vacation with my wife and my first daughter, who was only a month or two old, and
Right.
we were vacationing in the Mediterranean, and I ended up in the hospital, unfortunately, with some gut issues. And I had a great room. It had this nice view of the aquamarine water, and but it just wasn't the way I wanted to spend my vacation. And so, lying in my hospital room, I had some time to think about sort of where things were going and what changes I could make to change the path I was on. And one of the big things that came out of that was I made a decision to not drink alcohol anymore.
Right.
And when you're thinking of it conceptually, it sounds pretty easy, but
Mhm.
when it comes to actually putting it into practice, it was much harder than I thought it would be. I was a lover of craft beer.
Mhm.
Craft beer was really starting to hit its stride at the time. I was trying to take a step away from alcohol, and what was on the non-alc shelf was really just, it was terrible in terms of the taste profiles. There was no variety. And so I found myself, unfortunately, drifting back into alcoholic beer after a few months on non-alcoholic beer, and realized what was available as a substitute wasn't a sustainable thing for me. So
Right.
that kind of all coalesced into, okay, I'm gonna take a crack at changing this. I would really love to have a craft non-alcoholic beer and different varieties and improvement in taste.
Yeah.
And what was happening in Europe, there was definitely a renaissance there in non-alcoholic beer, and a lot of different styles being made, and the quality was better. And I thought, why can't I do this here in North America? So that's sort of the background that led to our Kickstarter campaign that launched in the early part of 2017.
Okay. How many non-alcoholic brands did you try before starting this?
So I'm just trying to remember back into like what was on the shelf. I was living in Toronto at that time. I live in Calgary now,
Mhm.
but at that time, Molson Excel, Beck's, O'Doul's, I think President's Choice had some store brands. There was store brands, Compliments. So
Okay.
um, it was pretty slim, the available products, and they were all, like, for someone who knows, they're all lagers. So there was really very, very little variety within that category.
Okay. Okay. And I was reading about non-alcoholic beer, and there are like different elements which are associated with it. Health is one of them, as you mentioned. Then there is that socializing and inclusivity that comes with drinking beer. So, how exactly does Partake, include or contribute to all of these aspects?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that actually came in and became part of our brand name, was this realization that, I liked, in my case, I like to drink beer after playing sports.
Okay.
And A is for refreshment, but B is is really for the social aspect and feeling, connected. No one's asking me, hey, why aren't you drinking? You
Mhm.
know, people got to know why I wasn't drinking after a while. But when you're in a new social setting sometimes, and people don't know your story, you still get asked it, and it was awkward, and it was personal, and I didn't necessarily always want to share it. I just wanted to have a really seamless and enjoyable experience with the people I was with. And so, even though there's a health and wellness component to it, and people might do it for pregnant women may choose non-alcoholic beer during their pregnancy and then go back to alcohol. There may be people who are abstaining from alcohol for religious reasons. um, so when we thought deeply about it, it was really this common thread about, okay, everyone at their core really wants to be accepted,
Right.
wants to be comfortable with their friends and families and new people they're meeting. And I think Partake is a great name that captures that.
Hmm. Okay. And non-alcoholic craft beer, especially, is a new category altogether. There isn't much awareness right now. So how do you go about, raising awareness for the final customers so that you can end up easily on the shelves of retailers through which you are trying to sell it?
Yeah, it's people now say, you came out of nowhere. This happened overnight. Nothing happens overnight. It's
Right.
there's multiple years prior to these, showing up in Loblaws or Sobeys or Metro. It doesn't. It's it's a it's misunderstood at how much time it takes to get to these places.
True.
For us in the early stages before that happened, we did a lot to build and identify our community.
Hmm.
And it was first sort of people who were in a similar situation to me, had a health or medical condition that um, they were probably already looking in the non-alcoholic space. So it was, at this point in our evolution, we call that group the need to have people. They just needed to have non-alcoholic beer for a variety of reasons. So we tried to identify those people, tell them that, we have something new, something unique to the category. Um, and we were really effective there, particularly with online, with Facebook groups, online social media advertising, and Google search. We were kind of the first people into our niche within non-alcoholic beer. It's hard to call it a niche now because it's grown quite nicely from those early days.
Right.
But we had the benefit of being kind of the first mover,
Mhm.
and being able to get some, the PR with that, the nice Google ranking that comes with that, and really built our online community, built an online store, got some good sales, and we're able to leverage that into our first retail placements. And then those retail placements did well, and then you kind of build up from a few store chains to a regional change to national change.
Right, right. That's important. Like, it's a good point that you mentioned. It's not it's never overnight. The success doesn't come overnight. And I believe, like, for the product development also, it would have taken you a lot of iterations, to get to the final product. How was
Mhm.
that journey?
Yeah, like even the Kickstarter campaign was the prototype product was done in 2016, so it preceded that,
Okay.
but we didn't have a way to manufacture it when we were doing the Kickstarter, so there's still a
Right.
bit of there were still definitely some question marks there as we were entering the Kickstarter phase.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's a continuous iteration. Each batch, um, you're getting feedback, particularly in the early stages. You don't have as many customers, which in some ways is nice because you know who they are, you know them by name, you can communicate with them. What did you like? What didn't you like? And really get feedback early on and implement that feedback into your product. And it works twofold. It's great because you make the product better, but also you're really engaging these early adopters because now they feel like they've had an input into
Right.
the evolution of this product and this brand, and in truth they have.
Okay, interesting, interesting. And in terms of your sales channel, so are you sticking to retailers or are you trying to get into like restaurants, bars, and pubs as well?
Yeah, pre-COVID, we were definitely having some great conversations and traction with bars and restaurants. Things are were substantially different than they were 3 years ago. I think
Yeah,
3 years ago, I got a lot of people um, that would make comments like, this is never going to work, dumbest idea I've ever heard, things in that nature. And you know, uh, today we can go into pretty much any bar and restaurant, and they've heard of us,
right.
and they're open to us, kind of, whether they sell a lot or not.
Mhm.
That's only part of the equation. The fact that they've heard of us and it's actually a conversation they're willing to have is a huge step forward, I think, for non-alcoholic beer, and the people that are looking for it when they go out.
Right. And do the legal requirements like help you also, like to get into these bars and restaurants in an easier way as compared to an alcoholic beverage?
Not really. Um, we've tended to have to move our product and distribute it and use the channels that they're used to.
Okay.
And so for us, that meant doing the same thing that the alcohol guys were doing.
Right.
And, and so we kind of adopted that supply chain, and so often our beer arrives with alcoholic beer on the same truck.
Right. 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 And Ted, like if you have to, advise new age CPG companies that are just getting started, what would that be? What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, there's a lot I could unpack there, but I think one of the things, and we talked about it, is really try to go as far as you can, iterate, be scrappy, be cash conscious, and focus on the really important things early on.
Hmm.
Um, there are rare circumstances where raising money really early may be advantageous, but that usually means you're not a first to market
Right.
participant. Um, Along those lines, I think in hindsight, those comments that I was receiving about, this never going to work, dumb idea. I think those in some way were validating about our first to market position. And I think if you're a true innovator, you have to hear those things. If you're not hearing those things, you've probably already been beat to the marketplace. So,
Right.
for early stage entrepreneurs that are maybe hearing that,
Right.
that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think there's a lot more risk there, because it's still risky to see if your thesis and your intuition will play out.
Mhm.
But at least on one side, you're probably first to market or very close to, and with that comes some unique advantages.
Okay, that's a really interesting take on it. Thanks for sharing that. And Ted, lastly, I wanted to understand what lies ahead for Partake. Like if we talk about next 12 to 18 months, I guess we should keep it as short as possible. But what lies ahead for Partake during that time period?
Yeah, so we've done, like, my team's done an exceptional job building our brand in Canada. We're in, most of the major grocery stores. Our work is by no means complete, but we have some really great momentum, and we're really able to reach a vast majority of consumers in a way that's convenient for them and fairly seamless for them. Um, I think the next big area for us, and we've had some success in the US so far. We've I would say we've intentionally limited our business down there, because we couldn't do very much because we didn't have the funding to do it. So we knew we had to be able to do enough to prove ourselves, and convey that this brand that works in Canada will also work in the US. And I think we did that, and that was instrumental in us getting our funding.
Right.
um, but now with the funding, our task is to really get into the US in a much bigger way with a a lot more retailers. So that's what's coming in the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, that's good to know. And yeah, I think funding is a big milestone, and it would definitely help you expand faster. But this has been such an inspiring story, and I'm sure like a lot of you know new age entrepreneurs would have a lot to learn from you. So thanks for sharing all those insights, Ted.
Yeah, my pleasure. For anyone interested, you can find us at drinkpartake.com, and you can get me on LinkedIn. Happy to communicate and help any aspiring entrepreneur that may need some help.